Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on SharePoint productivity with SharePoint Online and Office 365. My name is Craig Yellick. I'm the Vice President here of Alto Consulting and Training. We'll be concentrating primarily on the SharePoint aspect of Office 365 in this presentation. This is based on a case study of a recent customer deployment. If you've got any questions during this presentation, you can send a instant message chat to Joy. You'll find her in the organizer list. I won't be monitoring my chat window during the presentation, so if you send messages to Joy, she'll collect them, and at the end of the presentation we'll cover all of your questions. Alto has a variety of services that we offer related to Office 365 and SharePoint Online. We cover all forms of deployments, from initial deployment in a greenfield situation where you do not have a SharePoint portal installed, you don't have any on-premise server equipment, you have no cloud-type capabilities yet, so we can meet with you to find out your needs and come up with a good solution. We can also work with existing deployments to help broaden adoption to make sure that you're getting the most out of your SharePoint Online experiences, making sure that users are up to speed and able to leverage the many productivity capabilities that are in the product. Sometimes people just need a little push and they can get right in there and get things done. And then on the other extreme, we can take people who are already experiencing broad adoption and begin integrating their SharePoint experiences with their line of business applications, making sure that data from outside of SharePoint is brought in where decisions are made. And now that SharePoint has become a substantial repository of information, we're also keen to get SharePoint data extracted from SharePoint and into data repositories and reporting scenarios and other areas where you'd want to be able to utilize that information that's there. Our solutions range from what we call information worker solutions. This is where we recommend that people get started with SharePoint. This is using strictly out-of-the-box capabilities that can be configured and customized to better suit your needs. Once you've gotten over the initial configuration, we like to go and begin implementing workflow-based solutions where we can leverage still out-of-the-box solutions, but they don't involve code. So we can customize SharePoint's user interface, customize workflows for you, and basically extend and enhance the SharePoint experience without writing a lot of code or any code at all. And then finally, in a very mature setting, we have IT managed solutions where we can either assist you with identifying, purchasing, and installing third-party solutions that add additional document management, for example, or paper scanning capabilities, adding functionality that SharePoint flat out doesn't have. And in extreme cases, we have a .NET development division that is able to totally customize and build custom solutions on top of SharePoint. Today we're going to be talking about an extranet solution that is combined with an intranet solution for a customer of ours, and we'll be talking a lot about that in a moment. And so just a brief word here on extranet solutions in general. They're primarily about better communication with your suppliers, contractors, customers, trading partners, basically anybody who isn't part of your organization but still needs to be integrated with you at some level. And so sort of the first sweet spot is creating much more effective communication. If you're presently sending emails back and forth with trading partners or customers or contractors or suppliers, especially emails with attachments, it's a real nightmare, and I'm sure you're all pretty well tired of having to manage a massive inbox and have substantial document versioning issues as people send copies of PDFs and different versions of Word docs and spreadsheets around and so on. Certainly voicemail and faxing as well. These are very antiquated and outdated ways to communicate, and we can definitely help you streamline and stop that operation. And then the next level would be collaboration. Ideally, all your relationships with external trading partners are two-way, so it's not just you communicating with them or them communicating with you, but you're sort of sharing experiences and leveraging the knowledge that you collectively have together. If this is done correctly, you're able to respond to a changing market more rapidly and respond to opportunities much more quickly. So you're going to be able to increase your profit and basically have a better experience all around. Extranets that are based on SharePoint Online are very cost effective because they have out of the box all of the functionality that you're going to need to get work done with external partners. It begins with security. You can federate SharePoint Online with your local on-premise Active Directory so that your users have a seamless experience transitioning from an internal network to the external network and SharePoint Online. And then you would create separate accounts for your external users so that you have total control over what they see and use. And we'll see examples of that extensively in the case study coming up in a moment. You have a lot of control when you create an extranet because the cost factor is so low that you can go as fast or as slow as you desire. We always recommend starting with a low-risk proof of concept where you just give it a try. SharePoint Online is inexpensive enough, it's only a couple dollars per user per month, that you can sort of experiment exchanging documents, exchanging information through SharePoint with very little risk. And the beauty of SharePoint Online is that it's got instant scalability. SharePoint for 5 users is the same as SharePoint for 50 users as it is for 500 users. These are all running out of Microsoft data centers, and they scale effectively instantly. So if your pilot project is involving just, say, 10% of your supplier network, and you decide to go and fully deploy it, and now you need 300 users, that afternoon you can have 300 users up and running and utilizing that solution. Because you're not purchasing servers, you're not purchasing software, you're not really making any investment whatsoever, your cost is strictly a completely predictable monthly cost. You multiply the number of users you have times the cost of the particular license that you're utilizing, and you can plot out exactly what this solution is going to cost you long term. All right, today we're talking about a customer of Alto's called Bright Peak Financial. They are a insurance company that sells other financial products and services, and they're brand new. You don't see very many completely new insurance companies and financial services companies springing up. They have a very innovative sales model where they're using part-time agents rather than full-time agents. And so this is more of a almost like a financial independence movement mechanism where they're trying to engage younger people, younger adults, younger families, people who have not probably done a whole lot of financial planning yet, and make sure that they get them involved early in a better financial path. So their sales process is rapidly evolving because the clientele they service and their approach to this business has to evolve very, very rapidly. They're doing everything online, and this is a 100% cloud-based IT strategy out of these folks. 0 local servers, not a single one. Zero local servers, not a single one. Everything is done through Office 365, SharePoint Online, and other cloud-based services that they've outsourced. So very, very challenging environment. They're sort of on the leading edge of this movement to go online, and I sort of applaud them for taking that leap. As I mentioned, the agents are part-time, but they still need insurance licensing and product certifications in all of the states in which they operate. So this is a cost issue. BrightPeak has to make sure that they're putting the right amount of inputs into these agents relative to the cost of getting them up to speed. So it's a very complex onboarding process where, because these people are part-time, they can't be expected to complete a training and certification in a specific lockstep. Here, go to this training school for a week and take these exams and so on. So it's all linked to a training process that's also driven by SharePoint Online to go through that. And then there's this extensive growth planned. They're a very agile company, and they need to fine-tune this process nearly continuously as they scale. And so, as you can imagine, that's a pretty complicated process when you can't really predict exactly what's going to be happening down the road. The home office staff is located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they have an extensive support services behind the scenes to assist these agents. The normal insurance agent model is extensive training up front, and then they're mostly on their own for the rest of their career, whereas they're flipping it completely on its head, and they're fully expecting that their agents are going to need constant attention and assistance. So the BrightPeak model involves assisting the agents with their sales process, assistance in the policy writing, and then doing all the literature and collateral requests, training, mentoring. All of this has to be done by the home office staff. The challenges from an IT perspective is that it's 100% cloud-based, as I mentioned. They also have a number of line of business applications that are unique to the insurance and financial services industry, and those line of business applications must be integrated with their online environment to be truly successful. They've also outsourced things that they know they need but don't want to staff up and don't feel the need to do. That's a very common business approach these days, to sort of pick your battles, and so they've got a number of outsourced services that they utilize. Those need to be integrated as well. And then, because this is a new organization, they got to kind of start over with their measurement process, and they've decided to create a data repository showing all of the transaction velocities and throughputs of their business processes so that they can measure them effectively, discover where there are bottlenecks, discover where there is not a return on an investment, and be able to leap onto those things immediately and rectify them when there's a problem, and also exploit them when there's a benefit. So all of these are the challenges that were brought to bear. Alto is engaged as part of our whiteboarding process, where we meet with executives and discuss business challenges and how various technologies might be brought to bear. And after that sort of envisioning session, we then break down into multiple more focused whiteboard sessions where we meet with the division managers and key stakeholders in the various business processes to understand what it is that they need to get these things solved. And so our solution involves three major areas. We have the online portal for agents. This is essentially an extranet where they go to get training, they go to get motivation, because remember, they're part-time, and so BrightPeak needs to have, needs a little mind share, needs them to be motivated to do what they're doing. And then in order to scale up and avoid having an overwhelming amount of support staff in the headquarters office, as much as possible has to be automated. There's also an intranet portal for the home office staff. The way the portal is designed is that the agents, through security, can only see their own information, but the support staff behind the scenes has a unified view of all of the agent information. So it allows them to have sort of a bird's eye view of the entire process and then focus in on the areas that need help. The internal portal also has a number of workflows, mostly revolving around the onboarding process, but as well as literature fulfillment, collateral fulfillment, insurance request processing, etc. And then a very innovative use of functional process documentation. The normal mechanism for documenting standard operating procedures is to open up, Microsoft Word and start typing, and eventually you get standard operating procedures that are printed out and handed to people and largely forgotten, and very rarely modified. Instead, their functional process documentation is a combination of SharePoint wiki pages and Visio diagrams, and the Visio diagrams are not static flowcharts. They have clickable behaviors, so that as you sort of work your way through a process, you actually can click on an element, answer some questions, and that may launch a workflow that kicks you off to the next step, automating as much as possible. So that's an extranet solution, an intranet solution, and then the final key, our data and process integration with some custom .NET components to sort of round things out. The custom integration components fall into three areas. The first is the use of a single unified set of lists and libraries for all information in the agent portal. The agents obviously don't need to see each other's information, and in fact really legally can't see each other's information, yet the home office staff needs to be able to have views into the entire process at every step of the way. So the only way to accomplish this in SharePoint is to assign unique permissions to each list item, such that say a Word document or a PowerPoint file or a calendar entry or a task that's been assigned to them would have to have permissions just to that one agent, but also permissions to the appropriate management group that needs to assist them in that process. This would be tedious in the extreme for a person to do the clicking and dialogue work to literally assign permissions uniquely every single time. So our custom solution here waits for new items to be added to lists. It analyzes the item, looks for key identifiers, and then associates the permissions with the items automatically. That way, the home office staff can focus on getting work done and not doing pointless, mindless, repetitive actions. So the cost justification is there. We're really big on making sure that custom development can be justified, because otherwise you can end up spending a lot of money working around SharePoint, and we prefer that people work with SharePoint to get their solutions done. The next custom component that was built were some integration with outsourced suppliers. The new agent sign-up process is done through a third-party vendor that does background checks and other things that just aren't really important to have on staff. These processes vary by state, and so there are servicing agencies that can handle 100% of that very, very easily. The problem is that obviously these outsourced vendors are not integrated into the process, so we wrote some custom .NET components that listen for these activities and then trigger workflows to automatically initiate. And this is primarily in the onboarding process. As the agent moves through these vendor processes, the vendors are sending emails to Bright Peak, and previously, before this automation, home office staff had to just spend an awful lot of time looking at emails, copying and pasting data, and again doing routine, boring jobs. And so the justification here is that the staff is able to really spend their day doing useful things rather than repetitive and boring things. And then lastly, because SharePoint is not in this particular scenario being relegated to doing simple content management, it's actually doing business, it's doing work. Key critical performance metrics are being captured in SharePoint. Now, their line of business systems are also capturing key financial information, and other line of business systems are doing the same thing. And so to ignore SharePoint would mean that we would be giving up a large amount of very, very actionable data. So we also wrote a custom integration component that periodically pulls SharePoint for new information, captures it in a data repository, blends it with information from the line of business systems to produce key performance indicators, and also make the SharePoint data available for enterprise reporting. You're probably wondering what this all looks like, so I've got a number of screenshots. The problem with these shots are that we obviously had to just create a test login, and so there's not a whole lot of real-world data in there, but for privacy issues we really can't show a lot of real data, so what you're looking at are test shots. The top bar here is what the agent sees when they first come in. This landing page is cycling through motivational messages. Depending on who's signed in, there's some web parts down here that will show key performance indicators for that particular agent, letting them know how they're doing against their own personal goals that have been established by their mentors, as well as goals for the company overall. And then the different areas are for getting work done, doing training, etc. The agent's environment is heavily customized. We don't normally recommend that you customize SharePoint's user interface to this extent, but the idea here is that these agents really aren't here to collaborate. They're here to get work done for the most part. And so the internal network, the internal version of SharePoint, is a traditional SharePoint user interface that the home office staff uses, but the agents are here in sort of like a customized, what they call their work zone. We've heavily customized the user interface here to place common actions against their contacts. This is essentially a mini customer relationship management system that would be present here. And as they enter contacts, the back-end servicing system can consolidate this information, keep track of the literature that's been sent to them, keep track of meetings and so on that have been scheduled, and then they can launch these workflows to interact with the home office staff. The home office staff has sort of a view of this from behind the scenes, sort of consolidating things like material orders and that sort of thing to get work done. The as I mentioned numerous times here, the process is driven pretty substantially by workflows, and so the agents are trained to basically capture as much information as possible through the use of these workflows, so that BrightPeak can put key performance metrics together. You know, how many times does a contact typically need to be contacted before they purchase a particular product? How long between different events do things take, and what sort of training techniques have proven better or worse, because they're constantly experimenting with the training process. So this allows them to capture all of that information as well. The key takeaway here is that your users are going to have a much better experience with an extranet solution that makes them more connected to the individuals and businesses that they're working with. You're going to be able to react faster to opportunities by changing processes, and because of online portal, your IT expenditure is going to be greatly reduced. BrightPeak has a relatively tiny IT staff relative to the volume of business and the volume of agents and home office staff they have, because they've offloaded the mundane, routine IT tasks off to these cloud-based solutions. So nobody worries about backups, nobody worries about disk space, nobody worries about security, antivirus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of the sort of commodity IT tasks are taken care of by cloud partners, Microsoft and others, and that lets the BrightPeak IT focus exclusively on moving the business forward. The next step, if you're interested in any of these technologies, is we have a variety of training and education opportunities ranging from free to cost. We have classroom training options for all of the technologies that we've discussed. We also recommend that you give SharePoint and Office 365 a test drive. We can get you a free 30-day subscription, and you can have yourself and a number of individuals in your organization can experiment with all of these technologies. We'd be happy to assist you in that. And then ultimately, we want to engage with you to come up with possible solutions that might work for you. The offer that we're making today is a free whiteboard strategy session. The idea behind a whiteboard strategy session is to repeat exactly what we did for Bright Peak. Their first whiteboard strategy session was just myself and a couple of executives in a room with a whiteboard and a couple of markers talking about what is it that they're concerned about and what sort of business challenges are there, and then we take a look at the various technologies that can be brought to bear and sort of spin up a solution. And then we select a small number of low-risk, high-benefit proof of concepts and let her rip. This has been very successful, and we've had a number of customers that have transitioned from simple whiteboard sessions into major technology rollouts with a great deal of confidence that they're going to actually get something out of the deal. So that is the presentation, and I see the button is blinking here letting me know that I've got all sorts of messages here, so we'll dispense with a couple of the questions here. First one, are there any differences in functionality between the online SharePoint and on-premise SharePoint? And the answer is yes, there is. SharePoint on-premise ranges from the free SharePoint Foundation to the standard SharePoint Online all the way to an enterprise SharePoint Online. And enterprise on-premise SharePoint. And I would place SharePoint Online is a little more than the standard, but a lot less than the enterprise version of SharePoint. So there are definitely differences, and we could talk about the specifics if you're concerned. We'd love to engage you on that and explain sort of the pros and cons of each. All right. How difficult are workflows? Do you need a developer? Absolutely not. Workflows are considered a power user, end user sort of thing, so you can definitely have a couple of individuals in your organization take a small amount of time to get up to speed on the tools, but they're not developer tools by any stretch of the imagination. With that said, we do have our developers do workflows of great complexity, but they're not. You definitely don't need a developer to do that. Can we set up sites for sharing documents with customers securely? Absolutely. If you had attended a webinar about, I think 2 months ago, we did a case study with a law firm in Detroit where we had extensive legal document sharing between an on-premise SharePoint intranet and an extranet set up for customers. And obviously legal documents, you don't want them crossing the boundaries there. One client should not be able to see other clients' information. So if there was ever a case study for security, that was it. So you can definitely easily do that. Can you run SharePoint Online and SharePoint on-premise at the same time? Can we use it as our website? Yep. The case study for that is Alto itself runs 3 different SharePoint deployments concurrently, and I, as an internal user, am freely able to click between all 3 different types of sites without any problem. We have an internal intranet SharePoint that we use for our own business and sales operations. We have Office 365 SharePoint Online sites with federated authentication, so I can go to the online part of our portals effortlessly. And then lastly, our public-facing website is a SharePoint site. It's highly customized. It doesn't really look like SharePoint, but behind the scenes, it's SharePoint. And we have a number of customers who are doing that as well. And that looks about it for questions. If you come up with more questions that you dream up after the fact, don't hesitate to contact us. You've got the invite emails had the contact information in them, and you can always visit our website as well. And we're really looking forward to setting up some whiteboard sessions here with you all to just chat about what sort of problems you're facing and what sort of solutions might be present. So that concludes the webinar. Thank you very much for attending.